This podcast is brought to you with limited interruption by Rudy Luther Toyota. Whether looking for an exciting brand new Toyota, a certified pre-owned vehicle, or getting quality routine maintenance and service for your vehicle, Rudy Luther Toyota is the place to go. Rudy Luther Toyota, the southeast corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley. Broadcasting live from AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, as well as in the evenings on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk. It is the Matt McNeil Show for your Wednesday. Jeff Stein going to join us here in just a little bit to talk about, I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see how he feels about this, because he has been one of those people that is like, I don't know if this is going to be a conviction. Well, that was quick, that sort of thing. So, we'll talk to Stein about that coming up here a little bit later on. Brett is working with us today. Hey, Brett.
Hey, how's it going? I'm looking forward to Stein's take on what happened with that trial. We haven't talked to him since, have we?
No, we haven't. That happened on Thursday. That happened late Thursday. So, we will we'll let Jeff give us his take. And I also want to talk about not only the kind of the dismantle, the arguments against the justice system and Justice Department, and how it's just ludicrous, and yet this is taking hold, and the damage this is going to do versus, kind of trusting the justice system. But, once again, it's whose axe to grind sort of thing. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205 is the phone number. I want to start today, and by the way, Jeff comes up here in a little less than 30 minutes from right now. I want to start today with a mistake that we are all making. The media is undoubtedly making this mistake. But a lot of us are guilty as well of the mistake that's being made. And that is the idea that we have to tolerate things which are generally intolerable. Because that's just a difference of opinion. We have to agree to disagree. That's no. You can say Nazis are bad, racists are bad. There isn't a nuance to this, and if anything, I think the real evilness of a guy like Donald Trump was by his elevating at Charlottesville. There were good people on both sides, namely the Klan Nazi guys. There were good people there, and there were good people on the other side that were whom was killed by the bad guys. The idea that you have to give credence and cadence to this ugliness, which is the modern Republican Party. Tinfoil hat populism. It's a term I heard yesterday, and I thought that's absolutely it. But it's a system. The Republicans, because of Ron Paul and how he manipulated the entire primary and caucus system back, over 10 years ago, turned the Republican Party into what it is today. And the most outrageous, the most outlandish, and the most bizarre, that gets traction. I mean, if you look at a lot of Republicans across the country today, Republican politicians, there's a lot of them that you would, if you took a step back and you'd say, okay, do I really want this person deciding whether your federal or your state ag bill, your transportation policy, your health care policy? The guy that basically never finished high school and has been fired from 18 jobs, but because he can scream, he wears a MAGA hat really well and can scream racial epithets better than anyone else, and because you're in a district that back in 2010 got gerrymandered into where a turnip with an R next to its name could win, should you be voting for that person? Because you shouldn't be voting for that person. And that's you want to know the truth, that's the far less toxic element, just the incompetent side of it per se, guys that just have no idea what they're doing. And clearly, if you were to bring them in to your own business and try to interview them for a job, you'd immediately say, wow, there's so many red flags here, I would not hire this person. Now, that's not going, obviously the real danger, the real scary part is the racism and the bigotry. we don't condemn this nearly as hard as we should. And like I said, the real danger of a guy like Trump is by validating it. The news media said, well, I guess we have to treat this like a differing of opinion. No, it's racism. It's white people saying that black people should be subservient to them. There is no spin on this. That Native Americans should be mistreated. There is no spin on that. That Hispanic people should be mistreated. There is no spin on that. That women should get paid less and be mistreated and be able to tell and be told by white men what health care they can and cannot have. There is no spin on that. That when they come on out there and they attack the LGBTQIA plus community, there is no spin on that. That's just hate. It's anger. It's disgusting. And yet we have this mentality. Once again, the news media is atrocious at this. Edward R. Murrow, if a Nazi came up to him and said, I'd like to share my personal political point of view, Murrow would have destroyed him. You're a Nazi. You don't have a legitimate point of view. You're a Nazi. You're for killing all the Jews. No, you don't have a legitimate point of view. Today, it's, why electing a Nazi would be bad for Joe Biden. I mean, that's the kind of the mentality the journalists go with today. Why Joe Biden condemning racists is bad for his image. Really? I don't think it's bad for his image. But there is this validation that has happened in America, and for God's sakes, we have to stop it. We have to. We have to stop it. Facts and reality are not debatable. But yet, whether it's the news media failing us or it's the fact that I know a lot of people who are, because they're either scared or they're afraid or they don't know what to say, they basically just ignore and hope it goes away. And one of the things we are learning is that this stuff is not going away. And as a matter of fact, our lack of condemning it, our lack of vilifying it is only emboldening it more and more. There was a story out, and I can't remember where this was. This was not that long ago. It was a picture taken in Wisconsin at Baraboo High School. This was a bunch of boys on the high school, and they were all making the Nazi salute. And it was a pretty disgusting picture. And the people behind it tried to argue, we just told them all to wave. But somehow every single one of them, when you said wave, didn't put your hand up, tilt the wrist, and wave your hand, but rather kept the wrist straight and pointed their fingers. Which, you're racist. But you see, it's because they say, well, we were just telling them to wave. What does the news media do in that town? Well, they were just telling them to wave. It's not fair for me as a journalist to call that out, considering even though there's visual evidence that clearly is garbage. See? So what happens when all of a sudden you have a community that tolerates Nazis? The father of a Baraboo High School graduate blocked his daughter from shaking the hand of a black superintendent as she graduated. If you've not seen the video, I posted it up on social media. You can see it there. The school district, which has repeated problems with racism and anti-Semitism, held its graduation on Friday. The father was arrested, charged with disorderly conduct, the Wisconsin News reported. The father, who had been identified as 49-year-old Matt Eddy, an absolute jackass of a human being, jumped on the stage, grabbed the superintendent, and began dragging him off to the back of the stage. And that's literally what he does. He jumps on the stage, grabs the hand of the black superintendent, and pulls him, puts his hand on his shoulder and pulls him out of the line there. Madison.com described Eddy as forcibly pulling the superintendent away from his daughter as she crossed the stage. Traditionally, when students graduate high school, they shake hands with the principal and the district leaders. The video of the ceremony recorded the father as he shouted, "That's my daughter." At one point, he was heard shouting, "I don't want her touching him." Superintendent Rainey Briggs said, "You better get up off me, man. Get away from me, bro." The video shows the daughter clad in a blue cap and gown, shocked and pulling her hand to her forehead. She moves to her task to the left side, walks away as 3 police officers step in to take the man off the stage. Local news station News 3 described the social media comments saying that the father was angry at the way the district handled bullying issues related to his daughter. Now, I will come back to that in a second. Internet sleuths have found his employer. They posted the Facebook page. School district leaders, a statement saying our primary focus remains on celebrating achievements of our graduates. We want to ensure the significance of this milestone, the hard work of our students, are not overshadowed by this unfortunate event. Too late! They also said they're cooperating with law enforcement. It's not been confirmed whether the superintendent intends to file charges. I would. Now, it should be noted, multiple parents have said, oh, he was using the N-word in the audience before he went and jumped on the stage. Multiple parents said that he was doing that. It also should be noted his whole argument with this. There is a problem in the Baraboo School District with a group of parents, but it's not with Rainey Briggs, the superintendent. It's with I think it's the chair of the school board, a guy named Vodka, which, of course, Wisconsin. Come on. You know, his last name is Vodka. Dear Lord. Anyway, they've had problems with him, and there's apparently 2 different social media groups that are against him, one of which has already come out and condemned this, saying this person had nothing to do with our group. But that's what he's trying to say is, I had a problem with Vodka, that's why I went after Rainey Briggs. We all see what this is. Now, I want to, take a quick second here. This dude has screwed up his daughter badly. You look at the video of his daughter, and I feel so sorry for her. This was her moment to graduate, and here comes what appears to be racist Klan dad to drag the black man off the stage and acting like he's done something good. And his daughter clearly is going to need psychological help. I mean, she clearly, I could not feel worse for her because she clearly was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? My guess is she's going to college somewhere a long way away from Baraboo, Wisconsin. But we need to look at this guy, and because there's already a lot of attempt by the media. Look, we're not sure what happened. He just seemed to have a disagreement. There's a disagreement. Well, you can hear him. I don't want her touching him, referring to the black man. He's racist. You can hear that on the tape. Grow a pair and start doing your damn job. This should not be tolerated. We should be able to say outright racism and bigotry is bad. And the fact that the news media is just desperately trying to make up excuses for this guy's behavior is mind-numbing. Ugh. We'll take a break. Come back. It's the Matt McNeil Show on your Wednesday. It's the Matt McNeil Show on your Wednesday. Nice to have you with us today. 952-946-6205. Jeff Stein here in about 13 minutes or so. Emboldened by the mainstream of hard-right politics ahead of the presidential election cycle, white nationalists and anti-LGBTQ plus groups increased to record levels in the United States last year, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center's latest annual report on hate and extremism released on Tuesday. The Southern Poverty Law Center, which has published the annual report since 1990, documented 835 active anti-government groups, up 133 from 2022's account, 595 hate groups, an increase of 72 over the previous year's figure. Don't fool yourself. This is Trump. This is Trump. Accounting for the large portion of the increase was a 50% surge in white supremacy hate groups in 2023, the highest jump ever recorded by the SPLC, growing to 165 over 100 from 109 in 2022. White power and neo-Nazi rallies across the U.S. totaled 143 in 2023, but that was actually down from the previous years. More groups, less rallies. The SPLC saw a 33% rise in anti-LGBTQ plus organizations over the last year, bringing a total of 86. The group said the growth was largely attributed to the anti-trans movement of the far right. What we are now seeing is we should be a wake-up call for us, said Margaret Huang, SPLC's president and CEO, said on the call with reporters. Our 2023 report documented more hate and anti-government extremist groups than ever before. with an historic election just months away. Now, this is being fueled by the Republicans. And like I said, the coward journalists in this country, and I'm calling you what you are because you need to be calling this out, the fact that they are entertaining and dancing around hate as some sort of viable political point of view, that basically these people are going unquestioned, which brings up an amazing thing that happened just because it's hard to wrap your head around this. U.S. Representative Byron Donalds is a Republican from Florida. He is a black man. One of the lawmakers being considered for Trump's vice presidential running mate suggested to a crowd of black conservatives that things were better under Jim Crow. Now, okay, I'll be the first to say I am a big white guy, a jar of marshmallow fluff. I'm not going to deny that. But I know history. Jim Crow was pretty bad. It was really, really bad. And to argue that for a black man who's a sitting congressman to tell other black people, hey, it was so much better under Jim Crow. How do you get to this point? You get to this point because the Republican Party does not get challenged. They do not get put into a corner. They do not ever have to account for their dance with racism and bigotry. And so now even stuff like, was Jim Crow bad, is something that's debatable within Republican circles. Although today Donalds is frantically trying to argue, no, I never meant it like that. Donalds and Wesley Hunt, a Republican from Texas, spoke to a crowd in Philadelphia this week where they made a case for the group of supporters that are living under Jim Crow was better for them, the Philadelphia Inquirer reported. The event was part of the campaign's Black Americans for Trump initiative through the group met in northeast Philadelphia, one of the whitest, most conservative parts of Philly, the report said. To win a fight, you have to go where the fish are, explained to Hunt, which they clearly didn't. Comparing the election to fishing, we're going bravely where no Republican has gone in decades. We're going directly to the community. Once again, a mostly white conservative community. Not exactly. I mean, I don't know if you remember when Queer Eye for the Straight Guy was in Philadelphia, but they were downtown in the vibrant districts. You're not gutsy if you don't have the ability to go down and bring your message to the same neighborhoods that the Queer Eye guys did. So, I mean, I'm just going to make the observation. Later that day, the campaign held an event called Congress, Cognac, and Cigars. Through attendees were mainly black. The Inquirer said at a sign-in sheet about a half of attendees lived outside of Philadelphia. Black issues are American issues, Hunt said. What we hate what's happening to the border. We don't like being unsafe. And the person who's going to save the country from the brink is Donald J. Trump. Have they heard about the Central Park Five? I mean, I don't. Have you heard about Donald Trump and the Central Park Five? Have you? And never mind. Have you heard of this family history with black people? I'm not going to disagree. I think black issues are American issues. In the same sense as we hear the great show after my show here on AM 950 in the Twin Cities is Robert Pilot and Native Roots Radio. Native issues are human issues and human issues are native issues. 1,000% correct. Undeniably. But notice you didn't say black issues. You start bringing up Republican talking points and saying, oh, see, these are the issues. Hey, sports journalist Michelle Tafoya, someone from the Twin Cities, moderated a discussion with the men at one point, asked Donalds about the ways in which black men and black women view politics. The poll shows around 18% of black voters said they would support Trump. Pew Research found that number is different for black men who support Trump to the tune of 20% compared to women at just 16% the survey showed. Well, once again, he pulled 6% of the black vote, six of black women vote in 2022. So if you're telling me he's picked up 10 more points on the black women vote, no, he hasn't. So I'm a little skeptical about your numbers. But when comparing the two genders, Donald explained that black men are hunters and Biden has taken their spear. What? First of all, there's a difference between men and women anyway, Donald said. Men have the created by God to be conquerors, to be hunters. That's who they are. And so a black man in today's America is looking around and saying, How can I go hunt for my people and hunt for my family? They're looking for what Joe Biden has done and saying, I can't hunt. You took my spear. You took my bow. By contrast, he claimed women are infuriated by transgender people and immigrants. Wow. Like I said, because no one corrects this stuff. And now listen to how this guy is talking. Unbelievable. I mean, if I didn't know it was Donalds, I think it would be a white guy in Mississippi saying this. If I didn't know this was Donalds, I would swear this is Tommy Tuberville. Unbelievable. Black women, he said, are looking for their sons and saying, now, wait a minute, you're telling me that my young son can become a girl? Nope. You're telling me that son and my daughter who need an education now go out and be less than because of illegal immigrants in the city of Philadelphia? Nope. During the different points, Donalds explained that young black people are prioritizing the nuclear family, helping to breed the revival of the black middle class in America. Democrats destroy black families, he argued. You see, during Jim Crow, the black family was together. During Jim Crow, more black people were not just conservative. Black people have always been conservative-minded, but more black people voted conservatively, he said. And then the HEW, Lyndon Johnson, you go down that road, you know where we are here. House Minority Leader Keith Jeffries responded Wednesday. It has come to my attention that a so-called leader has made a factually inaccurate statement that black folks were better off during Jim Crow. How dare you make such an ignorant observation? You better check yourself before you wreck yourself. Thank you, Hakeem Jeffries. But I'm going to make the point here. When you read that, and I hear a white guy in Mississippi in the 1980s saying that. I don't hear a black Republican saying this. The fact that we are not correcting this stuff and we're allowing this stuff to fester, it's causing some real freaking damage in this country. And we have to challenge it. We'll take a break. Come back. Jeff Stein when we return. It's the Matt McNeil Show.
Jeff. J-E-F-F, Jeff. J-E-F-F, Jeff. J-E-F-F, Jeff.
Jeff Stein's our national and presidential expert, noted author. You'll find his books at your favorite book location. Also, totallyiowa.com. The Iowa Business Report, the Iowa Politics Report comes to us from KXEL, Cedar Falls, Waterloo, where Jeff is currently joining us from today. Hello, Jeff.
The best stuff is really before I come on the air, and you start sending me texts, and really that's the best stuff is when we're not actually on the mic. No, I just have to tell the audience.
Well, it's just I'm trying to type to you. What I'm wearing today is the Minnesota State flag shirt, which I love. I do like the new Minnesota State flag, and I'm wearing the shirt that's got the design on it, and I'm trying to type MN. And it keeps auto-correcting to man. It's the man shirt, which I guess it works.
See, we're on the video thing, okay, yeah. Folks, so that he and I can see each other, which is supposedly for a better conversation. I don't know who needs to look at this.
What the hell?
You know, and he's pointing at his shirt, and I'm looking like I have no idea what he's talking about. And so then I get a text that says, Man State flag shirt. I thought, what in the dickens is the Man State?
It sounds like a Trump line from a rally. Man State flag shirt.
Well, this is what I didn't know. I didn't know if the format of the station had changed. I didn't know if you all of a sudden heard the word guilty and said, I'm now changing over to the side of the felon. I don't know. No. Man State flag shirts.
Yes, no, it's a fine shirt. No, I'm not going to the side of the felon.
It's a fine shirt. The shirt is fine. I love the blue color. It's very nice.
Very nice.
Man State.
Well, I mean, it's better than the stupidity void, which we ran with forever. So, hey, okay, so you and I, we talked Wednesday. Thursday afternoon, I'm thinking we're going home. No thing. They said we need to fill out the paperwork. I had Jack Rice, who's on Court TV, on with me on Friday. And we talked about the legal ramifications. The speed at which these 34 came down, it was pretty remarkable. Your thoughts when you heard guilty on all 34 charges?
Well, now, remember on Wednesday, 1 week ago,
yes,
you said something like, well, it could be a verdict tomorrow. And I said, if there's a verdict by Friday, it's not a good verdict. I don't care which way it goes, because this case was more complicated. It was more nuanced. what I said last week, and I stick with it. It was somewhat rushed, but that doesn't mean it's the wrong outcome necessarily. But
technically, it's not the wrong outcome because it's what the jury did rule. I mean,
sure, but
barring problems on appeal.
But yeah, what I meant by that was if they would have come back in 20 minutes, you'd say, well, no, wait a minute, that's the wrong. That's what I'm getting at, is that you can't disallow the verdict. I mean, it is what it is. Given how everything played out, I don't know how it could have been anything other than this. And the reason is I'm a licensed attorney, but I haven't studied this case. I don't practice in New York, all that. There were a lot of things on this that, the jury instructions and the way things were going certainly lined up to where you could see why a jury would do that.
The fact that the jury was asking for rereads of the David Pecker testimony, which was once again Trump's buddy, and the fact that they were very, and he very clearly admitted, we came to this agreement, we were going to buy and kill stories, and that was what they wanted to hear. When I saw the passages they wanted to hear back from, I was like, this isn't going well for Donald. And it was.
It wasn't just that, though.
No,
right?
It
was Pecker, and then it was Cohen, and then could you read a little bit of what Stormy had to say? And it's like, okay, if you're the Trump team, and we've talked about this, I maintain there's no judicial reason why Stormy Daniels needed to testify because there was never a doubt that there was a payment made. But when you bring that in, that starts coloring things, that broadens it. And so when that's what they wanted to hear again, I'm thinking to myself, they're either going to go, and we talked about this, they're either going to go down each and every witness, God forbid, that would be excruciating, or that's what they wanted to hear, and it was just to support what their general predisposition was going into the jury box.
Just looking at this as a court case, I think this is something that's a case that's going to be taught for years, in the sense being that if you do have a case and the guy that is the defendant doesn't have the rosiest record, but your main witness is also not the rosiest record, by turning the whole thing into a cesspool. I mean, Hope Hicks was probably the least offensive person that testified at all, but Stormy Daniels is not that far behind her. And, the fact is, by turning it into everyone here is rotten, that I think diminished Cohen's faults. It also enhanced Trump's. And so if you're in a law school, and as a person who knows law yourself, I've got to believe, just as a law case, that is a very something that's going to be taught for years on how you deal with a case with similar consequences. Not a real pleasant defendant, but your witness is worse.
Well, if you've got a nuanced documents case, and that's what this was a nuanced documents case, that is dry as 3-day-old toast. So what can you do as the prosecutor to try to put a little spark into it? Well, you're bringing in some of these ancillary figures. And yes, if your witness, this is textbook, you're right. If your witness is not terribly credible, what you want to suggest is everybody in the room is wallowing in the same mud.
Yep.
And if Michael Cohen, in this case, is so bad, why did Donald Trump hire him all these years? That's the kind of stuff that, yes, of course you whip all that up. You're trying to create this sense of, you're in the middle of a mud pile. If you're the defense, you should, and I'm not sure that their best argument was to just simply say Cohen bad, because, so what? It would be to really hone in on the nuances, give them something to grab onto. And I don't know that they gave the jury anything to grab onto, given how the instructions came down, et cetera.
It's a political game. So immediately as this ruling came on out, it was pretty stunning to see the entire Republican contingent. Every one of them saying the judicial system is broken, it's biased, mind you, as Hunter Biden is currently being prosecuted, the son of the president is currently being prosecuted, that that Hillary Clinton, I mean, what is it Megyn Kelly was talking about? It's time for us to go after Hillary Clinton. It's like, you mean the same woman you went after for 12 years, repeatedly 8 Benghazi hearings, and you still couldn't find anything on her? You know, the reality is they've got to push this mentality. I understand why they have to, because they have to, in the mind of the voter, dismiss the felony counts as this is just a biased judge, it's a biased jury, it's biased everything. Mm-hmm. But talk a little bit about that, and as well, the damage that the Republicans are doing gleefully to the judicial branch of this country by basically doing this, suicide run on we'll take out the entire judicial system just to basically make Donald Trump look like the hero.
Well, there have been some who've been pretty quiet, actually. And I think you find that, and you don't know that because you're hearing the magpies.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting if you took a couple of steps back and looked at those who weren't really commenting on it. That's sort of telling. But here's the thing that I think is a bad idea about that philosophy. If you're saying, well, this is a broader statement, I'll come back to what you talked about. I am really mystified by people over the course of time who, if they don't like the verdict, they say, we did not get justice. Well, you didn't get the answer you wanted. I mean, and I don't care what we're talking about, if we're civil, criminal, whatever, like, well, we did not get justice. The system's broken. You just didn't like the outcome. I'm sorry. And sometimes the system is wrong. That's also a sad state of affairs. But to simply indict the entire process, but again, that's the cue that comes from the Trump campaign. Mm-hmm. And that's where the problem is, where there are 4 prosecutions. It so happens that those leading the prosecutions are not Republicans, okay? And so what they're doing, and I've talked to campaign consultants on this topic where they're not involved in the campaign, they don't care R or D, but they say that's the strategy. You say, look, it's a big conspiracy, everybody's against me, et cetera, because then it deflects from what you may have done or not done. Mm-hmm. And so again, from a political standpoint, this has no bearing, save one thing. This has no bearing on November because those who are going to vote for him haven't changed their minds. Those who weren't going to vote for him haven't changed their minds. I think there may be people who stay home, and that's not being counted very, very much. But I think he's going to sentence him to jail with immediate commitment.
You do. I don't.
Yes, I do.
I think that Merchant is going to come on out and say, what he'll do is he'll say, I'm not going to put you in jail, but I'm going to give you the maximum public service. And I think that's because he's going. I'm going to understand there is a dynamic here that has never been approached, and so I want to kind of. I'm not going to put you in jail, but I'm going to give you I can't remember what the
justice is. But justice is blind, Matt. If justice is blind, then you have to treat. See, this is the thing that got me about some of these analysts, where they're saying, well, he's a 78-year-old man, no criminal record. It's a paper offense. He should get a deferred judgment, probation, etc.
Tell that to Martha Stewart, by the way.
Tell that to Alan Weisselberg.
Exactly. Tell that to Michael Cohen. Exactly.
Well, now Michael Cohen.
There was more there, but still at the same time.
Okay. But the reason why, and I always get his name wrong, Weisselberg, whoever was the money guy in the Trump, okay, and he was taking the fall for everything. He's of the same age. He had no criminal history. He doesn't have as many felonies now that he's convicted of. What he had to do 4 months, I think, at the Gray Bar Hotel. Mm-hmm. So are you going to tell me that? I mean, if you're going to be consistent about your sentencing, I think the judge is secretly praying that, all right, they're going to file the appeal. He has 30 days to file the appeal. They'll file the appeal, and they will ask that any sentencing be postponed until after the appeal is over. That's why the sentencing is after the 30-day appeal period.
Yeah.
I hear these people honking about, well, it's right before the convention. Spit on the convention. Nobody cares. He picked that date because it's after the 30 days for appeal, giving the appellate court the time to get him off the hook, right? And they'll say the judgment is stayed, and et cetera. Because, all right, let's say he doesn't sentence him to jail. How about the monitoring bracelet? Mm-hmm. You're under house arrest. in New York City. I mean, it's putting the judge in a horrible position. That's why I think he is probably praying that they kick that sentencing until after the appeal.
I think you're spot on that I think you and I have talked about this margin of Republican voters that seem to be less enchanted with Trump this time around. And I think that there's a chance that they're going to be there. I also think independents are going to not exactly embrace Trump this time around because of this. But you're at the RNC. You're going to be in Milwaukee. You're going to go on out there and do your speech. And Trump is basically on house arrest or in jail, your nominees. How do you even begin to try to obviously it's going to be like, you see, they're locking him up for political reasons. I mean, that's going to be every speech.
Sure.
But at that point, I mean, it does sound very, crazy at this point. It's like, it's not everyone else. It's everyone else is against him. It's not the reality that he's just guilty. It's going to be amazing. That might be one of the most watched conventions ever.
Well, there are two things about what you just said. In the time that I worked as a criminal defense attorney, very few times did I have a client who thought they were guilty. Okay, so for example, you're saying Trump is saying, it's all a conspiracy. They're all against me. I had people with dirty UAs, proof of drug use. I was like, well, they set me up. What, they made you smoke? I mean, it was, it's always somebody else's fault.
Yeah.
So there's a mindset. It's more of a personality mindset. They have to, if sentencing is held on July 11th, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
They have to have had him record his acceptance speech in advance. You have to do that, right? I mean, in all seriousness, because if the judge, often when a judge will issue the sentence, the judge will say, you have 90 days to get your affairs in order. What if he says 4 months and it starts now?
We're now head out to cell block D for the acceptance speech. we can take a break.
So you're going to be...
Okay, wait, we got to take a break. We come back. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Broadcasting in the evenings on WCPT 820 Chicago's Progressive Talk, and in the afternoons on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. It is the Matt McNeil Show on your Wednesday. Jeff Stein joining us. So, Jeff, I'm going to give Brett full credit on this. This is what's going to happen at the convention. He's going, we now go to Donald Trump, and all of a sudden you hear an audio going, you have a collect call from the New York penitentiary system. You need to accept all charges and understand anything said on this could be used against you in court. Do you agree? Yeah. And they bring it
Here's my question about that.
Yes.
Brett seems way too familiar with the process of calls to and from a jail.
I'm making a comment on that.
I mean, apparently Matt's been calling Brett from jail again is how I was going to look at that.
Or it's the other way around. Who doesn't love a good Salisbury steak? Anyway.
Well, I'm going to be nice to the guy who has his finger on the microphone button, but this is the thumb in the eye. Trump, go ahead, do your acceptance speech on video in case you're not there to be there in person, but wear a bright orange necktie. Wouldn't that be a nice ode to the whole thing?
Will they let him have his hairpiece in there?
I don't think it's a hairpiece.
Oh, you think?
I just think it's bad.
You just think that's okay. That looks normal.
I have had people in this state who have shared a stage with him prior to him running. And it's always about, is that really your hair? And he'll say, okay, go ahead and pull it, just like he did with Jimmy Fallon. Remember they did that?
That's right.
And it's either a weave, which doesn't come off, a la Marv Albert, or I just want to see what happens when he doesn't have a 3-person pit crew fixing it all the time. I mean, that could be pretty entertaining.
His bronzer. I don't even know. We don't want to go down there. Okay. This aside, we should mention this. A requiem for the primary season. Yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, outside of, I think, a few islands out in the Pacific, we're done. The final states had their primaries. We're done. It's not really been an exciting primary race. It's not, the best part we heard is that RFK Jr. has a worm in his head. But that's still one of the most I still don't understand why you admitted that. and thought that was going to help your campaign.
Well, get all the bad stuff out early.
Oh, who doesn't like doom?
I have no idea. Well, now you're probably. Did you see New Jersey?
Yeah, yes, I did.
Now, here's what I figured you would mention. I saw these results last night. I thought Matt's going to mention this. Mr. Trump had a rally on the boardwalk or whatever.
Yes.
And said he's going to flip New Jersey red. But his own endorsed candidate for, wasn't it, U.S. Senate?
Yeah.
Failed.
Yes.
Whoops.
Well, okay, so we here in Minnesota, we've got Amy Klobuchar. She's running for re-election. And there was a great story about her coattails. And that literally, as far as politicians go from either Republican or Democratic Party, there are very few politicians that have the coattails of Amy Klobuchar, that whenever she runs, she does help down-ticket Democrats. Trump not only have we the money issues, not only do we have this, as we've talked about this, 3-4% of people who might just stay home because they just are tired of this, but he clearly has not had the coattails that the right has presented him as having. Sure, I think in the reddest of districts where, like I say, a turnip with an R next to it name could win, I think he does well there, because when there really isn't a challenge from the left, people look for a more extreme challenge from the right. I think that's just how it works. But I think when it comes to toss-up districts, or even up to like a +3 or 4 Republican district, it just doesn't seem to have, he does not have the coattails that you need a top of the ticket to have.
I don't think national people have coattails anymore. I mean, you mentioned Senator Klobuchar, and she does very well in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Right? Perfect. There was Iowa had a primary yesterday, non-presidential, and there's an incumbent Republican who was challenged in the primary for Congress, and she won 55-45. Oh, hello. That's pretty close. And that was a challenge from the far right. In other words, you're not conservative enough. And so it was a message that was being sent. But in terms of somebody like, and you and I have talked about this on the radio for years, I would tell you Obama didn't have good coattails. You saw it when he wasn't on the ballot.
Better in 08 than in 12. But yeah, you're right. I mean, in 12, he really didn't have anything. And
so that's the point. It's kind of like the states and its voters don't like somebody from out of town telling them how to vote. So I just don't think that he has the coattails.
There, with this whole thing where you immediately after this, you and I have talked about Trump with his wanting reparations from other Republican candidates because for his name, for all the good he's done for them. He immediately came out after the felony case and said, I don't want anyone to use the word felon or this convicted or anything like this without my blessing, without me getting a cut of it. I was just talking to someone in Illinois. I was talking to Patty Vasquez out in Chicago, and she was saying the Illinois Republicans are already out there saying, do not give money to the national campaigns. If you want to give money, give it to the local candidates. Are you seeing it in Iowa as well? Are you seeing this kind of, okay, if you want to help the local guys, the coattails aren't there, the RNC is not there, there is demand for money here, so, off the books here, why don't you just send me a check?
It's very... The Trump effort is very understated in Iowa because he's taking it for granted, and he probably with good reason. It doesn't look like a Joe Biden state, and so these folks are rowing their own boat. But I don't know, to the direct point, I don't know of anybody running a campaign in Iowa that's looking to the federal, the RNC or the National Party for anything. Yeah. Even stickers and placards. They're all rowing their own boats. And I think they're just ignoring the National Party, to be honest with you.
When I ran into an Iowa pig farmer who basically said after Trump put the tariffs in back when he was in office, I still stand with him even though my entire business was destroyed. At that point, I knew he has Iowa. Like you said, I don't think Iowa's really in play anymore for the Democrats because if you can go out there, and really destroy the international pork markets and the pork producers are still, he's our guy. I'm like, yeah, there's pretty much nothing he can do that gets you on the bad side.
It's also the fact that the Iowa Democratic Party is non-existent these days. Well, they can't find candidates, for crying out loud. And I've talked to people who have, turned down the invitation to run. So it's it's a combination of factors is what I'm saying.
Yeah. It is going to be interesting. Obviously, I think a lot's here. We're going to see a lot of polling that's coming on out, and I don't necessarily trust these polls, but it will be interesting to see if if they do show some sort of movement away from Trump in any capacity.
And you're 5 months away. Lots going to happen between now and then.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. Chicago, thank you very much. We'll talk tomorrow. Minneapolis, St. Paul, hour 2 up next. Hour number 2 of the show. Matt and Brett here today. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. Do you know that e-bike program, that electronic bike rebate program that they kicked off today? Because there's a rebate program apparently that goes on.
I did not know about this. Really? Okay.
The application site crashed for most of its users on the first day on Wednesday.
I'm not surprised
not
hearing
at
that,
all.
yeah.
Not in the least. In an emailed statement, the Minnesota Department of Revenue said the application site was experiencing technical problems and would not be available Wednesday. The state did not provide any new application date, but invited interested Minnesotans to sign up for email updates. We're working with our external technology vendors engaged in this program. Did they think, okay, it's Minneapolis, St. Paul, dude. Did you think that this wasn't going to be overwhelmingly popular? I mean, where was I at on Saturday? I was over on, oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank on I was on one of the trails, and there were tons of people on e-bikes. So they're out there.
Yeah, that would be in high demand. I would imagine. I don't know how you couldn't think that wouldn't be in high demand.
Well, and
tech vendor for them.
Well, you would think so.
I think 12 people might sign up or something. Yeah,
I was at Bryant Lake. I was on the park on the other side of the lake where we're broadcasting from right now.
Yeah.
So there's a park over there. We were at Bryant Lake, and I was on the trails over there, and there was tons of e-bike people out there. So this is going to be a wildly popular program. As a matter of fact, my wife and I have kicked around getting an e-bike because it is kind of one of those things where I could bike some of the loop around the city. I couldn't do the whole thing. I mean, that's nuts. That's a lot of biking for a day.
And those e-bikes are really tempting. I've rented one before, and I was skeptical at first, thinking, am I really going to get any workout from it? But you still do work out, but it's there to assist you, which is nice. Yeah, if you're feeling a little tired, give it a little boost.
Good thing about Minnesota is there's not too many hills. I know where a lot of the bad bike hills are, the really nasty ones. Until they reopened up the 9 Mile Creek Trail, there was one over on Bren Londonderry 169 where you had to go down. I mean, we're literally going down like 12 flights of stairs down to the bottom of this thing. So you had to bike back up it, and that always stunk.
That's why I used the e-bike on the way up. Exactly.
Well, I can only imagine what the sound of the motor is going to be like with me. The state of Minnesota is offering rebates on e-bikes for customers who purchase and apply for the discount. Rebate applications are originally due to open on Wednesday, with July 1st being the earliest date of purchase. And the discounted bike, the rebates will be worth 50 to 75% of the maximum discount of $1,500. So I'm going to, the maximum discount, $1,500. How much is that e-bike going to cost? That's got to be the high end. What is a high-end e-bike?
From what I've seen, those are pretty expensive. I'd say at least probably $7,000 or $8,000.
Really?
If not even more, yeah.
According to the state's website, those with an adjusted gross income of less than $29,000 have the potential of a 75% rebate. State residents with an adjusted gross income of more than $125,000 can claim a 50% rebate if approved. So most people will be able to get one. They're a first-come, first-served basis, though. That's why it crashed.
First come, first serve. Yeah, those are going to be gone in just days.
Taylor Swift tickets in this town, man. It is. Speaking of concerts, how about that? Orville Peck is over at the Armory on June 11th. If you've not caught Orville Peck is great. He's there is this kind of new Americana that is out there, and it is a heavily country influence, but it's not like the country music of old, which sometimes can be a little repetitive. These guys got kind of new styles, new beats, new tones, a new product, really. And it really is fantastic. I mean, it's in the vein of Little Nas X and Sturgill Simpson. He's got some stuff out there. I mean, it's really this kind of new country and imagining where country music can go. And Orville Peck is at the forefront of all of this. He's just fantastic. He is going to be at the Armory on June 11th. The Stampede Tour. Doors open at 5:30. Show is at 7. Opening act Duran Jones and Debbie Dawson. He got basically his latest album Bronco. It is the Stampede Tour. I'll tell you what. We're giving away pairs of tickets all this week. Let's give away a pair of tickets right now. Okay, call in number 5-952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Orville Peck on Tuesday, June 11th at the Armory. The Stampede Tour. A pair of tickets for caller number 5, 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205 is the phone number. So I talked about the idea of holding people accountable. And that we can't just allow people to say the things that they want to say and there's not going to be any, or do the things they want to do and there's not going to be any consequences. Which brings me to a strange story out of the school district my kids go to. It's Hopkins. And a good sign today of support for the community. Dozens are rallying Wednesday outside of Hopkins High School after an alleged attack that Minnetonka police are investigating as a possible hate crime. Family members tell Channel 4, 17-year-old Colbert Sovereign, a transgender girl and junior at the school, was first called a homophobic slur before she was attacked outside of a bathroom on Thursday. Sovereign uses she-they pronouns according to their family. Their dad took her to one of the hospitals where the doctors told the family she had several breaks in her jaw and a fractured teeth. The family says she's recovering but still can't eat solid foods. So, there has been, because I am in the Hopkins district, I have been subjected to some versions of the story. I am not sure what's happened. The versions of the story, I can't attest if any of these are accurate, but a lot of them line up. That basically Colbert was in the bathroom. Someone came in, started using homophobic slurs. They basically left. They were followed, and for lack of a better way to say it, were cold-cocked. They basically just sucker punched them right in the jaw, broke the jaw, and it sounds pretty horrific. It sounds pretty horrific, unjustified in any capacity, and yeah. Multiple LGBTQIA plus family support groups, including the Queer Equity Institute and the Transforming Families, showed their support on Wednesday while also expressing frustration at the district, alleging they tried to keep the attack under wraps. Their older brother, Wilder Sovereign, says his family is worried she could have traumatic brain injury. Thankfully, she's experienced little glimmers of transphobia before. This is just natural, as most of of not all trans people do, said Wilder. But it's never been this bad. It's never gone to the point of full-on assault, so I'm disgusted by the fact that our that facet of our community. In a letter to the families, Principal Crystal Ballard said the attack has not yet been officially deemed a hate crime. She went on to say, even the thought of an attack of this nature can be traumatizing, she pledges the district will work to create safe spaces for LGBTQIA plus families, staff, and students. District officials released a statement saying, in part, Hopkins Public Schools is an inclusive community that values diversity and inclusion. They also said they will address any issues that compromise safety and inclusivity with the school environment. Well, you're kicking that kid out of school, right? The one that sucker punched her, the one that cold cocked her, that kid's gone, right? Right? Oh, or not. And I understand you can't say it, but I'm just asking the question. I know you're not going to ever answer that question. But the violent attacker, you're not trying to figure out some way for them to, I don't know, graduate if they're a senior and graduation at Hopkins is tomorrow. You're not trying to figure out some way for them to walk across the stage if they're a senior. Or if they're a junior, are you trying to figure out some way for them to come on back into school and diamond in the rough? Is that what you're doing? Because I've got a kid in that school. I don't want this attacker in the school with my child. There's obviously a violence issue here. And just saying to the parents, suck it up. I ain't going to cut it. So, if as the story dictates, and once again, part of the problem here is apparently there's security video of this, and the school hasn't been sharing it. And I'll get to that here in a little bit. But if this attack is as it's been described, putting aside the hate crime elements of this, if you've got a student who's out there breaking someone's jaw and you think to yourself, all right, mister, detention for 3 days, you've learned your lesson. And then we're going to have a pancake breakfast in a drum circle and we're going to talk about our feelings. That's not consequences. That's not the real world. And I don't care who you are. Okay, once again, I'm going to say this. I will say this emphatically. Clearly, we needed to fix our education system, and we still do. There's an achievement gap there that has to be addressed. There is segregation through open enrollment and you know just the boundaries of school districts. There are these things that are out there which are undeniable problems. They need to be addressed. Because I don't think, a kid, flipping off a teacher or something should be the end of their high school career. But when you get to the point of violent attacks, you've got to have more than just, are you really, really, really sorry? Well, back to school then. Drum circles and pancake breakfast don't cut it. Because the real world will not tolerate that. If that individual goes and gets a job, say at, I don't know, Target or 3M or wherever, and all of a sudden one day there's a person they don't like in their workspace and they break their jaw, not only is that person not going to get a pancake breakfast in a drum circle to talk about their feelings, they're going to be arrested and fired. And not only will they be arrested, but then there's going to be a civil case against them because that's the real world. I'll get back to that here in a second. So I'm presuming safety here means the attacker is not going to be allowed anywhere near the rest of the student population until there's some sort of solution here, whether that's a court case or whatever. Because to put someone that violent, if the assault happened as it's been described, well, that's not an option. The letter of the parents and the district officials said they'd be working with police to minimize any impacts of the school day during the rally. While they're not directly involved in the organizing of it, they say the support of the rally brings attention to what is not right in the world. They're in support of the rally that brings attention to what is not right in the world. District officials tell Channel 4 they cannot share any more information because of the students' privacy laws, including the name of the other student involved, any disciplinary action, blah, 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 blah. But if everyone sees the student in the school and you're going on back and you're going and saying that to the victim that, hey, Coble, guess what? You might run into this person, but don't worry. They've promised they're not going to leave the room that we have them in on one side of the school. I don't think that's a viable thing. Police said they were notified. And here's where it starts getting questionable. Police say they were notified hours after the assault that it said it had taken place. The investigation is ongoing. Wait a second here. Someone hit this student hard enough to break their jaw. They had to be bleeding like a sieve. They had to be swelling up like a sieve. You did this and you didn't call the police right away? As a person who lives in the Hopkins School District, I can't wait for the soon-to-be settlement that the district is going to have to pay to this family for that alone. Now, I had multiple other people get in touch with me because, once again, I do what I do for a living, and I am actually in the Hopkins School District. Here's a note I got this morning. My wife's boss has a trans daughter that was assaulted at the high school where her jaw was broken in 2 places and got a concussion. The school initially called my wife's boss but minimized and suggested she take her daughter to the dentist. An ER visit was recommended by the dentist. The school has continued to downplay everything and still refused to file a police report. That was this morning. Once again, the police have said, oh, we didn't hear about this assault till hours afterwards. Why not? Okay, and I'm going to repeat that question. Why not? Why haven't you been giving the family of the victim everything they need? Well, first of all, who is the brain trust at the school who gave the medical exam to this child and said, well, it looks like a dental problem, to where the dentist is like, no, you need to get to the ER right now. There's a ton of mistakes that have happened here. And we're not even talking about the fact that there's a clear implication that this was a hate crime attack, that is a possibility, that this was a hate crime, which angered enough of the LGBTQIA plus community, rightfully so, that they had a major rally outside of your school because you mishandled that element of it. What was going on here? Was the attacker a senior and you're, wait a second here, we need to give them a chance to graduate so they can have a moment to shine. Is that what was going on here? Because what in the hell was going on here? And I got to tell you the truth. If I'm the parent and I know, and there has been a name that's been floated around on the attacker, I'm not going to say it here, but I don't know who it is. I don't know who this individual is. I don't know if they're a junior. I don't know if they're a senior. But if I was aware that there is a student that's going to graduate with the rest of the senior class who only a week ago violently attacked somebody in school, might have done it under the argument of a hate crime, and you're going to give them their moment to shine, diamond in the rough, you guys got to get out of your own damn way at this point. I completely understand you need to remodel the system so that it doesn't overwhelmingly punish and deter the minority population, the LGBTQ population, the poor population. I 100% get that. But we were talking yesterday about Mary Moriarty. And Mary Moriarty had two people who murdered somebody. They were the trigger men in a killing. And because of brain size, they were going to be sent to home detention. So basically DoorDash and Netflix. And that doesn't seem like punishment for somebody who's murdered somebody. And that's where she started to lose me. I understand you don't want to basically have harsher consequences unless you have to have it. But broken jaws, violent attacks, and the possibility of a hate crime, do you guys realize all you're doing is re-victimizing the victims when you basically kid gloves the attacker, who, by the way, doesn't seem to have used the same mentality towards their victim? I'm critical of this, and I'm critical of any school district that doesn't have a base policy that says, oh, you attack someone violently? Well, I'm sorry. You're not going to prom. You're not going to graduate. You're not going to be in school because we're going to have you in a remote location, or you're going to have to homeschool yourself because we can't trust you to be around the other kids. That's not excessive punishment. That's the base attitude you should have. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. I am not very grateful as a taxpayer in the Hopkins School District for the massive check we're going to have to write out for this, because if all this plays out as it has, there's a lot of questionable decisions that have been made by the school district that make me wonder, well, how much money is this family going to a point, rightfully get? 952-946-6205. Yeah, I'm glad we had the rally. I'm glad there was support. I'm glad the school district seems to, hey, wait a minute here. Violently attacking someone is a negative. Really? Wow. All right. Brave new stance. But still, this is what in the world happened there that this didn't get a far more serious response in the beginning. I don't know. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. I've got my theories, but I'll keep that private. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950. Like I said, I understand that you have to have some changes here, but I also, what good are you doing students to create a world where if they fight with somebody, that there aren't going to be any consequences for that? That you can kind of basically go settle things with your fists, which you should not be doing. And there is always, I think one of the things that always bugs me, I think, in the modern school thing is to justify this, to justify not coming down on students who are fighting in school. They try to make this argument that, well, both sides are guilty. Both sides, you shouldn't have been lipping off or something like that. You shouldn't have been doing this. And the reality is that's not the case hardly at all. A lot of the times it is, kids. I'll never forget. I will never forget. Charlie was like 1 year old, right? He was, or 1 year old, first grade. He was in first grade. He was in first grade. We're in school, and the teacher says, "Hey, can we have a little chat about Charlie?" I said, "Sure, no problem." He said, "Well, Charlie had a little problem today with one of the other kids in the class." And I said, "Oh, no, what happened? Did he do something wrong?" He goes, "No, Charlie didn't do anything wrong at all. Charlie was basically sitting and, doing whatever first grade schoolwork was or reading a book or something. And this kid came over and started pushing him and yelling at him. And, just was making some pretty bad statements about things. And Charlie kind of got up and, took it very well. But he could tell he was concerned and he didn't quite know what was going on. I said, "Well, what happened here? Do you know what happened? Was there something that my son said?" He goes, "No." He goes, "I want to be, this teacher at that point said to me, I want to be clear that what has happened here is the kid that came after Charlie was, he doesn't have a dad, and he's somewhat having aggression issues, and he's having pretty much a hard time with this." And her theory was, well, because you're always in the classroom and you're always helping out and you're always there with your son, that's why Charlie was the target. And I was, and it was funny because I'd wanted to be there for my son to not make him a outlier, a kid with that was what I thought was going to be on the outside. I wanted to be an active father in my kids' lives, and I have been that. And I did that because I did not want them to be a pariah. I did not want them to be, to have issues. And what I didn't realize was by me being there and being very active in my kid's life, I had unintentionally done that exact same thing because the kids that didn't have that, they got upset. I've had instances where I have been swimming in a lake, and when the kids were young, we'd go out there and swim, and I'd throw the kids in the water and stuff. And all of a sudden, I noticed my little solar system started picking up another planet here. Here comes this kid who you could tell was like, what is this solar system? The center body, the center mass, seems to be playing and having fun with its planets that are orbiting it. This is interesting. And this child would start coming on in. And I usually would, sometimes encourage the kid to play until I had a case where the one kid got so excited by an adult man playing with him in the water that he almost drowned my daughter. He basically was jumping on top of her and pushing down. I'm like, no. You can't do that. You need to go back and, we're going to play together. And I didn't mean to send that planet back on its own orbit, but you see, that I think is sometimes what happens is that you get kids, and this goes all the way through it, that they're angry and they're frustrated and they're mad. And those are the kids. And it's not the majority of them. And it's not just, any specific subgroup of human being in any capacity. It's in all different groups, in income brackets, in religious groups, and in racial groups, and gender groups. You get people, there are just people out there who are angry and mad. And if that stuff is never addressed and it's never taken care of, eventually it gets to a point where you get a kid who is, once again, out of control. And I would make an argument, I would say this about an adult. If I walked into a restaurant and someone just cold-cocked someone and broke their jaw, I would say, that dude, there's something seriously wrong with that dude. Well, that person didn't become that person overnight. That's generally a lifetime of anger. And we can have discussions about, boy, wouldn't it be nice if that individual had some counseling and some therapy? Absolutely. Try to figure out what their anger problems is. But you cannot just keep ignoring the problem and hoping that the child that has got anger issues doesn't somehow implode. Or when they do implode, say, well, we all had some pancakes, and so now the kids gets to go back to school, and the attacker, I understand you're scared to death for your life, but, that's just the deal. We have to be better at this because, like I said, I think there's a tendency to, if the argument is, well, we're not going to address this aggressively because we are going to present this as a both sides are doing it, well, then you'd better have a different game plan when somebody is just trying to be the person that they are and they get cold-cocked in a school and their jaw broken. Because to act as if there's a both sides there, all you're doing is once again re-victimizing the victim. 952. You can tell I'm a little passionate about this. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. Let's take a break. Come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show on your Wednesday. AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, the Matt McNeil Show. Hey, I talked about Orville Peck pairs of tickets. Let's give away another pair right now. The Stampede Tour coming to the Armory on June 11th with Duran Jones, Debbie Dawson, as well. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. Let's give caller number 5 a pair of tickets to go see Orville Peck. Once again, at the Armory next Tuesday, June 11th. 952-946-6205. Good luck with that. I wanted to get into a story right now. And by the way, I should say caller number 5, 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205, caller number 5. I wanted to bring up this story because there's an excellent story that was in the Reformer. And I'm kind of glad that Cooligan didn't talk about this yesterday because this, it basically talks about the failure of the government to help out the average farmer. Because farm subsidies have overwhelmingly gone to the wealthy. And I'm going to read a good chunk of this here because I thought this just nails it. And if you are a metro area person and you don't understand how rural America is just screwed over by these right-wing conservative policies in agricultural districts, and I mean, the problem is the conservatives, the Republicans are screwing over the farmer in the rural community, but they've got these people so tied around their finger they can say, look what the Democrats did, and they say that's what happened. But you have to look at how the system has been failed because we favor these super wealthy farmers over everyone else. Although farm subsidies were originally intended to help family farms, they have become a tool for making the largest and wealthiest farms larger and wealthier. Those at the top work hard to preserve the system, and the small farms are left fighting for scraps. Minnesota's Emerging Farmers Down Payment Assistance Program was attempted to better divide those scraps by prioritizing grants for first-time farm buyers who are veterans, urbanites, women of people of color, and other groups not conventionally associated with agriculture here. This prioritization has led to litigation, and the circumstance surrounding that litigation shows that turning small farm grants into another front on the culture war is exactly what corporate farms want in order to preserve their present status. So basically what it is this. I mean, there's a cartoon that runs around that shows a wealthy guy with a plate of cookies, like 500 cookies. And to the rest of him, to the right of him is a white guy with a plate with one cookie on it. And on the other side is a black person with no cookie on their plate. And the guy with the massive pile of cookies said, "You see that guy over there? He wants your cookie." And that's exactly what this is. The same people who gobble up all of this. And by the way, you don't even begin to understand the abuse by wealthy corporate farmers of this system. There are farms in this state where 20 people are getting massive checks at the same address. Not because they're working 20 times harder than the neighboring farm. It's just the whole family is listed as part of the farm group. And because they write big checks to Republicans, they're not going to change that system. Meanwhile, there are tons of farmers in that community that are barely scraping by. And not a single Republican is out there going to help them. So once again, they come on out with this. They had grants here that they're going to help for people that were non-traditional farm roles. And so the farmers that the wealthy corporate farmers have screwed over, they look at them and they say, go get them. How dare they give those grants to someone else? And by the way, mind you, if they could figure out a way to get that grant money for themselves, they would take it in a heartbeat. In 2021, Minnesota farmers received $1.5 billion in federal subsidies, just over $1 billion of which came through commodity programs and crop insurance assistance. The commodity programs subsidize farmers who grow large amounts of corn, soybeans, and wheat, much of which doesn't get eaten by humans. Gets eaten by humans. The crop insurance programs provide the biggest and most financially stable farms with the minimum payment for the crops, regardless of market fluctuations. Which, once again, capitalism, my ass. This is socialism 100%. The entire ag sector is wildly socialism. I mean, it is wild socialism. So when you go on out there and these people are like, they want to bring socialism to the rural. Now, socialism's already there, dude. You got tons of socialism. As a result, in 2021, the top 10% of Minnesota farms received nearly 2/3 of the money. So once again, I want to make sure we put that number out there. The top 10%, the wealthiest farms, the 10% of the wealthiest farms in the state of Minnesota received nearly 2/3 of the money that was for everyone there. It basically they came through commodity programs and crop insurance assistance. So basically, yeah, it's only going to a small portion of the farmers. So the other 90% of farmers get the 1/3 that's remaining. The top producers gain hundreds of thousands of dollars each. I mean, it is that crazy. Like I said, you'll go look at houses. I mean, wasn't it Michelle Fischbach was in her family? Was it Michelle Fischbach or Michelle Bachman? I can't remember which one. Where they had all their family listed as farmers, and every one of them got like a six-figure check. Every one of them. At a mansion, a mansion out in rural Minnesota. Which, by the way, and once again, I'm going to say this, they don't even live at. Most of them live in the cities. Most of them live in larger towns. Their kids go to private schools. This is all, it's a dog and pony show, man. The top producers getting hundreds of thousands of dollars each. Meanwhile, 40% of Minnesota farmers, mostly the small family farms, and those who grow non-commodity crops or raise small amounts of livestock, get nothing at all. Nothing. 40% of farmers in the state of Minnesota do not get any government assistance. None. This is, your entire argument is you do not want welfare because you do not want the wealthy people subsidizing the lifestyle of the poor. Yet the entire ag sector is the reverse model, and you guys will fight to the death for that, where the poor people subsidize the wealthiest ag farmers and everything, and the bottom 40% don't get a dime. But that welfare, that's America. That's America, man. Man, you don't get it, man. You don't get small town country life, man. You don't get it. You liberal with the microphone in the big city. You don't get it. No, I get it. You basically are screwing over all the rest of the farmers and jamming as much money in your pockets and acting like you're salt of the earth when you don't even freaking farm anymore. You're sitting you're sitting in a corporate room. Maybe you show up on a harvest day for 1 minute in a flannel shirt to take a bunch of pictures. Look at me, I'm a farmer. I see through this entire fiasco. This entire fiasco. You want to, in rural America, in rural Minnesota, you know what's screwing you over? It's not Democrats. They're the only ones trying to help you at this point. Nope. It's all those people saying, trust us, we're not like those liberal people. Let me tell you the reverse welfare system. No, hand me $100. I got to go give it to this wealthy guy. Oh, by the way, sorry about your hospital closing and your school closing. But hey, the wealthy guy, he's the guy that lives over in Minneapolis, St. Paul, who talks about how he's salt of the earth farmer person and hasn't been out to his farm but once in maybe every 8 or 9 months. Yeah, he needs your money. The Minnesota Emerging Farmers Grant Assistance Program had a total budget of $1 million last year. Of the 176 applicants, 68 were granted $15,000 each to help with farm startup costs, including land and equipment. The preferences to women, people of color, young people, and urbanites was done in part to diversify the Minnesota farming community, which is 99% white and 75% male with an average age of 55. As farms increase in acreage, it becomes more likely they'll be operated by white males. As a white male who grew up in farming, Lance Nisler had a low priority, and his lottery spot was pushed back far enough he did not receive a grant. He filed a lawsuit in January as being represented by Pacific Legal Foundation, a California firm that often makes libertarian legal arguments. Yeah, because that's the guys he found in the phone book out in his town. You know, I could go with Pete, the attorney that's right down the street. You know what? Instead, I'm going to go with this libertarian group out of California. Why would a California firm with 24 Supreme Court wins be interested in representing a would-be small farmer in Minnesota pro bono? Because Nisler is being used as a pawn for the larger culture war game. A hallmark of management capitalism has always been keep the underlings fighting among themselves so they do not rise up and overtake you. Nisler is the perfect example of small farmers being made to fight each other for table scraps while the big farmers feast. Funding all 176 applicants a Minnesota grant program of $15,000 would cost $2.64 million, less than 0.18% of the federal subsidies Minnesota farmers receive. So basically, this is a drop in the freaking bucket. It's basically 2/1000ths of the entire budget for subsidies, which once again, 2/3 of which go to the wealthiest 10% of farmers who are jamming that money in their pocket and laughing all the way to the bank. This would diversify a farming community, provide much-needed boost to small farms and farming hopefuls. It will have very little impact on the payments enjoyed by large farms. Nisler is fighting for $15,000 against other people who cannot afford 40 acres, while farmers who own thousands of acres get $500,000 from the federal government every year. And once again, in some cases, that's per person per household. In some cases, with the current legal landscape and the weaponization of the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause against equity programs, however, Nisler will likely win his case. Meanwhile, small farms will lose if the war if something does not change. And by the way, when it does happen, and this guy thinks, great, I'm going to get my cut, know what's going to happen? All that money is going to be gobbled up by those wealthiest farmers. And all of a sudden, that law firm that represented him is not going to return his phone calls. Because you know why? Because they have no problem with reverse welfare, where all the money goes to the wealthiest people, and the bottom 40% get nothing. This isn't about helping out the American farmer. This is about taking every damn dime they can get and giving it to a handful of wealthy people. And so this guy's a pawn in the game, and he's acting like he's making the right choice. Dude, you're screwed not because of this grant program. You're screwed because of the corporate farmer who's laughing their ass off looking at you, you dim bulb, doing their bidding for them. And they will gladly take that $15,000 out of your pocket when you win it. I can't help you if you're too stupid to realize the pawn that you are in the game. Big farmers are getting bigger and their owners are getting richer in part because of disproportionate federal farm subsidies. Small farmers are fighting each other for scraps and, in Lance Nitzler's case, attempting to dismantle equity programs to win pittances. If just 1% of federal farm subsidies money was diverted to state grant programs such as the one Nitzler was suing over, there would have been no basis for the lawsuit, and the Minnesota farming community would look forward to more prosperous and diverse future. Spot on. And maybe you can actually stem off this lawsuit by just finding another another $1.5 million, and then everyone who applied gets $15,000. Done. You know, all of a sudden his cause doesn't have his just cause. But we need to have a larger discussion. And DFLers, Democrats, I get it. You don't like talking about this, but you have got to see how badly the Republicans are screwing over rural America. Not only is all the government money, which tons of government money go to rural America, but almost all of it gets in the hands of a small percentage of the farmers, and 40% don't get squat. The poorest the smallest 40% of farms don't get anything. And then on top of that, corporate America is shutting down your hospitals and shutting down your community, and your downtowns are basically a whole bunch of vacant buildings. And your school closed down. Now you have to drive 30 miles to another place. But the minute any school district says we need to do a referendum, all of a sudden these corporate entities come on in there and tell you, if you vote for a referendum for it to happen, guess what? They're going to just take your taxpayer dollars. Because the wealthy corporate farmer doesn't want to pay their fair share. I want to help you, rural America. I want to help the poor farmer. I want to help you. But you got to want to help yourselves. And sitting around basically allowing yourselves to be pawns in large corporate law firms with libertarian stances is not basically going to help you. It's not going to help you at all. And until you guys are willing to look at the problem and say, hey, this needs to change, well, they're going to laugh all the way to the bank. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you. 952-946-6205. It's the Matt McNeil Show here on your Wednesday.
Feels good to see the world getting loose. Feels good to see the world getting loose.
If all of the kings had their queens on the throne, we would pop champagne and raise a toast.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I want to bring this whole show back around to where I started. We're talking about Republicans, and the reason why we get Republicans who are basically complete idiots and should not be in politics. You know, the guy that, I didn't finish high school, and I've lost every job I ever have, and I'm on my fourth marriage, and half my kids don't talk to me, and I want to represent you in Congress. Pass. Hard pass. But yet, this is what constitutes character within Republican districts. And when I say you have these Republican districts where the redder the district, if there really isn't a challenge from the left, what's going to happen is they want a choice, so the choice then becomes something even further to the right. And this is the mistake that the Republicans made by making such overwhelming Republican districts. They've almost doomed themselves into the MAGA cult. Because people, they go, I don't want somebody who's going to negotiate. I want somebody who's going to be reckless and doesn't know what the hell they're doing. And by the way, in half of these Republican districts, they could have a candidate, that would be their slogan, reckless and doesn't know what they're doing. Vote for me and they'll win by a mile. They would win by a mile. Growing rebellious group of Minnesota Republicans is following a national trend of preferring slash-and-burn candidates who think They'll do battle with the establishment over more of the moderate, in many cases more electable alternatives. There's a paradigm shift among Republican activists. I think that there was an undercurrent of intense emotion, said Jill Labes, L-A-B-S, a spokesperson for Taylor Rahm, the GOP candidate running for the Republican Representative Andy Craig's 2nd District seat. What she called a "we're mad as hell, we're done" sentiment helped Rahm, considered to be an underdog, handily win the endorsement for the 2nd District GOP convention against Joe Tirab, who is the backing of Tom Emmer and dozens of other GOP members of Congress. Tirab said the ideological war of the GOP could lead to electoral losses this year. And it absolutely, I mean, if you don't seem to understand, I know you immerse yourself in this world of extreme far-right politics, and all you get is your far-right news and your far-right websites, and you become convinced that the rest of the world agrees with you. And then you walk into the plank. I'm not going to stop you guys from walking into the plank. I actually enjoy watching that happen. But you guys, you got a big problem here, because a lot of these guys are grossly unqualified to hold office. And you wonder how you get Marjorie Taylor Greenes and half the clown car brigade that's over in St. Paul. It's because you basically don't have any damn standards anymore. And your districts themselves are picking the craziest of the crazy. Native Roots Radio is up next. Make sure you stick around for that. We're back on a Thursday. Till then, see ya.